you all are reading the manga.
That's
so like in My Hero Academia, I play All for One, and I have people going, they'll come up, and if any All for One fans, I'm not trying to steer it away from this, but so I've been in prison. My character, All for One's been in prison.
Oh, I'm glad you told us it was your character.
Yeah. Actually, I got to get back. I'm overdue work release.
Everyone's got an orange shirt.
Yeah, got to see my bracelet down here. It's really nice. But it's funny because people walk up to me and they go, "Man, just wait." I'm like, and it's just what's about to happen. Well, it comes out of the manga way before the anime, you know. So it's all very, very exciting. So we get our information like, is there going to be another season and stuff from what you all know. So
that's true. You guys know more than us.
If you know, please email me at johnswasey@sbcglobal.net.
So when you guys are doing the voice recording in the studio, and they're doing it scene by scene, and then it gets pieced together and the episode airs, are there any scenes that you guys have watched and you go back and think that you should have done it differently, or it didn't turn out the way you thought it would?
Well, I don't watch them that much, to tell you the truth. I mean, but I'm sure there are.
Oh yeah, I can tell you when I've seen stuff, especially stuff I've directed, but when I see stuff, when it all comes together, it's just like, why did they do it like that? But hopefully when, because of the process of doing ADR, which is what we're doing, the director is going to give you the context of the scene and the lines and all that, so you know the proper delivery, as opposed to, example, like, he just left. He just left? He just left? There's all kinds of ways to say it. And if you don't know the context, you're not going to say it perhaps the proper way. So we rely on the directors, obviously, to guide us to,
And then we hear the Japanese version first,
right,
too, which kind of helps, even though we don't speak Japanese, I don't think. Do you?
Hi.
Do you?
Nani?
But it does help, because you can kind of hear inflections and if they're angry or happy or whatever.
I will say for me, sometimes, on a rare occasion, I'll be watching something that I was in, and I'll go, oh, that's the take they decided to use. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Because I remember doing it this way, which I thought was a little bit better. But but generally, I'll look at that and I will understand why the director. Oh, okay, that makes sense that he decided to go with that reading instead of the one that I like, because he knows the show better than I do. The director, I say he, is often female too, but the director will know the show better than the actor. So it happens sometimes, but for the most part, directors are pretty good at getting the performances that they want.
And there's sometimes, and I can say this, and I don't know if you've directed, Linda, or not, but as a director too, there's an interesting line of, you're directing an actor, and myself as an actor, I can't, they deliver a line, and it works fine, but not as the director, but as the actor, I'm going, God, that's just not the way I would have done it. But you can't do that, because you can't give them a line read on every line. That's not, it's not efficient, and it's certainly not appropriate. So you have to you're also relying on the talent and skill of the actor that they bring to the table, and they bring something that I don't, even as an actor. They bring something totally different, and you have to trust that that's it. Now, if they're way off point, you can guide them in as a director, but not as the actor, you know what I mean? Not actor to actor, it's director to actor. So there's been lines that I'm like, even as an actor being directed, I would go, oh God, I didn't really like that. But the director's like, no, that was great. That's exactly what I wanted. And you're like, oh, well, fine. If you're happy, I'm happy. Because really, it's just like any art form. So I can do it 1,000 different ways, So.
I never thought of that, though. You would think like an actor and think they should say it that way, but that makes sense.
Right.
All right, you got another question right here. So my question is for all three of you. John Swasey just brought it up a second ago about like, you know, all for one and not knowing like what happens later and stuff like that. Have y'all ever gotten a role, right, and you get into it like, you know, you're not familiar with the series at all yet, so you do the character, you do some research, I guess, and then you get familiar with the series. Do you guys ever be like, hey, this series sounds pretty good? So you like kind of like read the manga ahead of it, like say you're just recording season 1, you like read like the manga onwards, not only because you like the series, but also like, you know, for spoilers, like, or I guess to avoid spoilers, or do you like being surprised in the series that you're voicing? Like, oh, that's what's happening.
I like to go in kind of cold. I mean, if I'm auditioning for something, I'll do my homework and my research and as an actor. An example of that, there's a movie I did called The Boy and the Beast by Mamoru Hosoda. And I was auditioning for the Beast. And so I went and watched a little bit of the Japanese version. What's that?
Typecasting.
Yeah, well, certainly wasn't going to be the boy. So, but I listened to it, I read it, I studied up on Hosoda a little bit. I had done Summer Wars that he also did, so I was kind of familiar with his work, and so I really prepared myself. But then once you go in, start doing the role, I don't think, okay, I'm going to do this episode, so I better read up on the manga. We just go in and do it. And once you've gotten into the character, I mean, my gosh, if they said, Linda, we want you to do Frieza again or whatever, I mean, she can jump right in. She's done so much of it, and Bruce has done so much of his characters that we can just jump in and just go with it. And it's also nice to be surprised, I think, when you find, like what's going to happen.
I like it to be cold too, but except for auditions.
Right.
Read up on that. But I'm the same way. I like the surprises. I think it probably makes me do better, like fresher. If I know exactly what's going on, I might overthink it and then not be natural or not do what I was going to do. So I agree with you. I like cold.
And let me I'd like to hear what Bruce says too, but I will add too, Linda, you brought up something about listening to the Japanese. And to me, way back when I started doing this, we would always change some lines and make them funny and Americanize it or whatever. And I was actually working on a show at Funimation, and I kind of realized, it was about 20 years ago, I realized, you can't do that, because the Japanese are the one who created this. We didn't create anything. We're dubbing this into English. So it's important to me, and I'm sure to everyone, that we stay true to, as close as we can, to what the Japanese performance did or is. And we have to recreate that in an English language. So reading the manga ahead of time and knowing, getting preconceived ideas of how you're going to do your performance really it doesn't matter, because you can think up all the lines you want and all the ways you're going to do them and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, when you get in the booth, you're going to have to do it the way it needs to be done. And that's the way it was done originally and the way the director wants to direct it. So it's kind of fruitless to sit there and develop this whole thing. Now, if it was pre-laid, if it was all original, that would be different.
All right, got a question right here.
Did voice acting find you, or was that a plan?
Or was it what?
A plan.
Plan. Was it?
So did voice acting find you, or was it a plan? Like, did you just stumble into it, or was that your goal from the get-go?
Well, mine was a plan because I was always an actress in theater, and I did other voiceover work, but I stumbled into anime. I did, because my friend said there was an open audition and asked me to come along with her, and I almost didn't go, but I had already done so much work. So anime didn't really seem that different as other things, except that the only thing is being in the booth all by yourself and then having to just imagine the other person talking to you. That's a little different. But otherwise, it's almost like theater acting, right? Yeah.
I was an actor, still am, I guess. I started acting in '87 and was doing film and television and commercials and voiceover and commercial voiceover, industrial narration, I mean, the whole thing. And somebody one day said, you ought to do this thing called anime. And I'm like, what's anime? And he's like, well, it's Japanese animation. I'm like, well, I don't speak Japanese, so that ain't gonna work. He's like, no, dude, we dub it into English. I was like, oh, well, all right, I'll give it a go. So there was this company in Houston called ADV Films back in the early 90s. And I went to an audition and actually tanked my audition. It was one of the worst auditions I'd ever had. I didn't understand the process. I didn't understand what I was doing. And so I left and I sat in my car for about 15 minutes and I said, okay. And I went back in and I said, I know you got a lot of people to go through, but I would like another shot at this, if you don't mind. And they said, sure. So I waited till the end of the day and I went back in, and when they said, we're rolling, I just started going, you know, so they're like, oh, that was great. So they hired me. So I certainly just stumbled into it. And even when I started doing it, I still didn't know what it was. I was like, what is this? This is just characters with kooky looking hair and funny eyes, and why are their eyes so giant? I don't understand. And, oh, I get it. This is Speed Racer. That's what it is. And so I was like, you know, and for me as an actor, it was just another gig. You know, it was another thing I was doing. It was, you know, it paid this bill a month kind of thing, you know. And I had no...